One of the up-and-coming flashcasts I want to explore is how to be a great seller. I get asked all the time, how do you build a sales team? How do you make sales? So again, I urge you, send in your questions, send in your thoughts around this topic of sales, and I'll answer them on Flashcast by PDB. Hi everybody, Phil DeBella from FlashCast from PDB, and today I want to talk about the art of negotiation. So last year I was fortunate enough to go and fulfill one of my dreams and study at Harvard University, where I did a certificate in strategic negotiation, and I wanted to share a little bit about obviously not what I learned there, but also my thoughts and some of my experiences in negotiation. Remembering that everything we do is a negotiation, whether it's in our family, personal, or professional life. We're either negotiating with ourselves, we're negotiating with our wives or partners or children, or we're negotiating at work. So negotiation is a way of life. It's part of life, and hopefully I can give you some tips over the next few minutes on how best to go about it. But before I do that, just a few things to understand. Let's set the scene. The ego normally comes into play and emotion when it comes to humans. So understanding egos and emotions is very, very important, especially around self-esteem, as self-esteem affects everyone's thought process. Low self-esteem can cause negative thoughts, and positive self-esteem can make people do amazing things. Our brain goes into fight or flight mode when we're confronted with things. So again, the ego and the emotions kick in. So I find that in negotiation situations, we've got to make sure that we get our ego and emotions in check. The other thing is to remember to separate the person from the emotion. Is trying to understand why somebody is getting emotional or egotistical. So it's really important to separate the person from that. People want to be understood and they want to be accepted. That's just human nature. So knowing that people want to be understood and accepted is important. When people are listened to, this makes them feel important. It in turn puts them into logical decision-making mode. And this is what we want. Something that people call tactical empathy is that when you're having negotiation with somebody, if you can keep it away from the ego and emotion and keep them involved in the discussion and making sure that they feel listened to, that things happen well. And negotiation is simply communication with results. So understanding what negotiation is, it's communication with results. You often hear me talk about the common denominator of failure is poor communication. And communication is everything from the way we dress, the way we look, the way we present, what we write. It's everything. So understanding exactly what negotiation is, it simply is communication with results. So a couple of things, two things that are major takeaways from today is something that we learned at Harvard was called a ZOPA, a zone of possible agreement. Another way to put that is the difference between your worst possible scenario and your best possible scenario. So when you're negotiating anything, really be clear on the worst possible scenario and the best possible scenario. So what's the top and the tail, however you word it? What is if it's $1 contract you're negotiating, what is the least amount of money that you'd be happy to pay, and what's the most amount of money you'd be happy to pay? Whether it's accepting money, whether you're in a negotiation where your people are got to pay you, what's the least amount of money you would accept, and what's the most amount of money you would accept? If it's a situation to do with not money, it's not transactional in terms of dollars, but it's something else, understanding what that zone is. What's your worst possible scenario and your best possible scenario? The next one is that there's 3 levels of discussions. And again, Jim Zabinius, who's the head negotiator for Estee Lauder, and he's also the wonderful man who runs the Harvard course, says that there's 3 levels of discussion. There's discussions around power, rights, and interests. And this single-handedly is one of the most powerful things I've ever heard, is that when people communicate and when they're negotiating, because remember, negotiation is communication with results, is that people are either talking about their rights, their power, or their interests. And he states that the best success and the time that you can get 100% success is when you're discussing things in people's interests. When you keep all discussions at the interest level, you're guaranteed of success. And that means not only your interests, but their interest. Understanding what other people's interests are, as well as understanding what your interests are. And keep the discussion away from what is your right and what is your power. And you'll find that next time you're in a discussion with someone, if you just remember that, interests, rights, and power, you'll easily be able to identify when someone's taking a discussion down the road of their rights or their power. And you'll see how ineffective it is compared to when somebody discusses things in interest. And I mean, if we take the marketing world, the advertising world, marketing's the art of telling a story, so compelling people choose you. you'll see that when someone runs a marketing campaign, are they marketing their right? Are they marketing what they're in power to do? Or are they actually marketing what's in your best interest to choose that product? And the one that will get you the most emotional engagement is the one that markets in your best interest. So it's a really, really good tip to understand that the best negotiators in the world are constantly looking at things in what is your best interest. So a couple of key takeaway messages is understanding that negotiation is participatory, meaning you can't negotiate with yourself. When you're negotiating, it's communication with results. Remember that positional negotiation is not effective. So positioning yourself in power and rights is not as effective as being in interest. Remember that power in negotiation comes from preparation. You can't negotiate effectively if you are not prepared. So Gin Zabinius talks about 90% of the battle is won when you prepare before entering a negotiation. So a really big tip there from Harvard University experts and Professor Jim Zabinius is that you need to be prepared. And a lot of people that fail in negotiation are simply not prepared. Now, remember that, again, negotiation is communication with result. Understand what that zone of possible agreement, what that zone of possible result is for you. Keep discussions at the interest level. Remember to keep it away from ego and emotion and go and be the best you can be. People's limitations are often self-imposed. Until next time, I'm Phil DeBella and you've been listening to FlashCast by PDB.